The wind blew cold across Liberty Island. It was late, long after the last tourist had gone. Only one man stood alone near the base of the Statue of Liberty. His name was Ethan, a simple engineer visiting from Chicago. He wasn't there to take pictures. He came because of something strange he had seen in a news clip, a tiny light blinking from inside the statue's chest during a thunderstorm. Most people ignored it, but not Ethan. He was curious, maybe even obsessed. So that night, when no one was around, he sneaked past the fence. He stood under the towering statue, staring up at her face. Something didn't feel right. She looked different, almost sad, almost alive. Suddenly, thunder growled over the sky. Dark clouds rolled in fast, and lightning cracked far in the distance. Ethan stepped closer, placing his hand on the cold stone of the statue's base. The moment he touched it, he felt it. A faint vibration, like a heartbeat. "What the?" he whispered, pulling his hand back. He stepped away, but before he could turn, another lightning bolt struck, this time directly hitting the statue's torch. The whole structure glowed for a second, and then silence until the stone cracked. A fine line, barely visible, ran down from her eye to her cheek. Ethan froze, and then it happened. The statue's eyes, those giant green eyes, flickered with light. They moved, ever so slowly. They shifted down and looked straight at him. He stumbled backward, heart pounding. This couldn't be real. Statues didn't look at people. They didn't move. They didn't blink. But she had. He knew what he saw. And then, before he could run, a voice spoke, not out loud, but inside his mind, a soft, trembling voice full of pain and age. "Help me." Ethan collapsed to his knees. The energy around the statue buzzed like static electricity. Pieces of her outer stone began to fall away, crumbling like old dust, and beneath it was skin, pale, smooth, glowing slightly blue in the dark. Not human skin, something alien, something otherworldly but beautiful. Her face, once made of stone, was now a real face. Eyes wide, lips trembling, hair flowing like silk made of starlight. She looked down at him with fear and confusion. She blinked, slow and tired, as if waking from a deep, endless sleep. Ethan didn't know what to say. He only whispered, Who are you?" She tried to speak again, but her lips couldn't form the words. Instead, he heard her voice again in his mind. "I was left here. They thought I was dead. They turned me into this prison." Her eyes filled with something that looked like tears, but they floated off her skin like tiny glowing beads. Ethan slowly stepped forward. He reached out his hand, and she didn't flinch. She was cold, weak, but very real. "I don't understand," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "You were the statue this whole time?" She nodded slowly. "I was not always stone. They froze me, trapped me here, because they feared what I carried." More of the outer stone broke away. Her arms moved, shaking. The torch in her hand fell and shattered into pieces. She looked smaller now, no longer a symbol of power. She looked like a girl, an alien girl, who had been imprisoned for far too long. Suddenly, alarms rang out in the distance. The island security system had activated. Lights turned on, red beams scanning the area. They were coming. Ethan looked at her. She was struggling to breathe, to stand. He didn't know what this was, or why it was happening, but he knew one thing. If someone else found her first, they might hurt her. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her glowing shoulders. "Come on, we have to go," he said. She hesitated, then nodded weakly. Together, they ran into the darkness toward the ferry dock, toward questions no one had asked for 300 years. Behind them, the statue stood half broken, no longer a symbol of liberty, but a prison that finally had been opened. Asterisk. The alien girl sat shivering in the corner of Ethan's tiny apartment, wrapped in an old blanket, her glowing skin barely covered. She hadn't said a word in hours, not with her mouth, not even in his mind, but her wide, strange eyes followed him everywhere. Ethan had no idea what to do. What do you do when the Statue of Liberty, one of the most famous landmarks in the world, Turns out to be a living alien girl. And now she was sitting on your couch, trembling, lost, and maybe dangerous. He poured her a glass of water and set it in front of her. She looked at it like she had never seen a glass before. Then she touched it gently, and the water inside turned into tiny sparkles floating upward like stars. Ethan blinked. "You can do that?" he asked, amazed. She looked at him slowly and nodded. "My name is Lyra," she whispered at last. Her voice, this time spoken aloud, was soft and strange, like music underwater. Ethan sat down on the floor across from her. "I'm Ethan," he replied. "Why were you trapped? Why the statue?" Lyra's glowing eyes dimmed. "A long time ago. I came here in peace," she said. "I carried something sacred. A source of energy from my people. But humans thought it was a weapon. They feared me." Ethan leaned forward, heart racing. "Wait, you're saying the statue wasn't built? It was you?" Lyra nodded again. "They covered me in stone, locked me in place, and turned me into a symbol." "A lie." The words felt heavy in the air. Ethan stood and began pacing. "I don't understand. Why now? Why did you wake up after 300 years?" She looked out the window toward the night sky. "I don't know. Something is coming." Just then, Ethan's laptop pinged. He walked over and checked it. He had uploaded a photo earlier, just one frame from the moment the lightning struck the statue. A glowing eye, just visible through the crack. Now it had over 2,000 views, and comments were flooding in. Some called it fake. Others said it was proof of aliens. But one comment chilled Ethan to the bone. "Delete this image. They're watching you." He closed the laptop slowly. Something wasn't right. And he had no idea who they were. Then there was a knock at the door. Ethan froze. Lyra stood instantly, her body glowing faintly blue. She was scared. He placed a hand on her shoulder, then stepped to the door and opened it, just a crack. Two men stood outside. Black suits, expressionless faces. One held a tablet, the other a badge. "Mr. Ethan Ross?" The taller man asked calmly. "Yes? We'd like to ask you a few questions about your visit to Liberty Island last night." Ethan's heart dropped. He tried to act normal. "I was just there to take some photos." "Did you see anything unusual?" "No," Ethan lied. "Just clouds and lightning." The men looked at each other for a second, then nodded. "If you remember anything else, please let us know." They handed him a card blank, no logo, no number, just a single word: observation. As they walked away, Ethan shut the door and locked it. He turned to Lyra, who was now trembling again. "They knew," she said quietly. "They always knew," he nodded slowly. "This goes deeper than I thought." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He went digging into government archives, old construction records, hidden news articles. And that's when he found it. A file buried in a digital archive from 1886. The year the statue arrived from France, but the file wasn't in French. It was in a different language entirely, one he now saw in Lyra's glowing eyes. He printed the file and showed it to her the next morning. She scanned it, and tears filled her eyes. "They knew what I was," she whispered. "This is a containment plan, not construction plans. They didn't build the statue. They built a prison around me." Ethan felt sick. For over 300 years, people posed in front of the statue. They called it freedom. They called it hope. But it was actually built on fear. And now, Lyra was free, but someone out there didn't want her to be. Ethan knew they didn't have much time. He leaned closer and asked the one question that had been burning inside him all night. "Lyra, what exactly were you carrying when you came to Earth?" She hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. "It's not a weapon," she said softly. "But it can destroy or heal. It's inside me." Still, just then, the power in the apartment flickered. The lights blinked out. The laptop shut off, and outside, he could hear engines, several vehicles pulling up. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm. "They found us," she whispered. Ethan didn't wait. He grabbed his bag, her blanket, and opened the back window. They jumped into the alley behind the building and disappeared into the shadows. Behind them, black-suited men kicked down the door, but it was too late. The alien girl had escaped again, and this time she had a human who believed in her. Rain poured over the city as Ethan guided Lyra through the wet alleyways. Her bare feet splashed in puddles, her thin form trembling with each step. He didn't know where they were going, only that they had to keep moving. Behind them, the black vehicles roared past the main road, searching, but the darkness and rain gave them cover. They finally stopped behind an abandoned train station. The structure was old, rusted, forgotten. But to Ethan, it was perfect. He used to come here as a boy. Nobody visited anymore. Inside, Lyra sat quietly on a broken bench. Water dripped from the ceiling, and wind howled through the cracked windows. Ethan lit a small camping lantern and set it between them. Lyra stared at the flame like it was magic. "Is it alive?" she asked slowly, her voice weak but clear. Ethan smiled a little. "No," he said, "but it gives warmth, and that's what matters." She looked down, hands in her lap. "I forgot what warmth felt like," she whispered. Ethan could see it in her eyes: pain, loneliness, centuries of silence. "Why didn't you fight them?" he asked gently. "You had power. You could have broken free any time." Lyra shook her head. "I didn't want to hurt them," she said. "When they captured me, I begged them to understand, but they feared me. And fear always turns kindness into cruelty." Her words hit Ethan deep. He thought of history books, of stories they told about liberty and freedom. All this time, the truth had been buried beneath layers of stone. She looked up at him. "Do you know what they took from me?" He shook his head. She placed a glowing hand on her chest. "My voice," she said, "not just my words. My connection, my thoughts, my song. My people don't just speak, we feel. We share thoughts. But once I was sealed in that stone, I was alone. For 300 years. I could feel the world, but I couldn't speak to it." Ethan looked away, ashamed of his kind. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Lyra tilted her head. "Why do you say sorry for what others did?" "Because I'm human too," he said. "And it was wrong." She stared at him for a long time. Then, to his surprise, she smiled, a real, soft, sad smile. "You're the first human to hear my voice and not run." They sat in silence as thunder rolled outside. Ethan checked his phone. No signal, no messages. The internet had likely been blocked in this area. He looked at her again. "Lyra, do you remember where you came from?" She nodded. Slowly, "I came from the Kalari system, far beyond your sun. My people sent me here as a messenger of peace. We had sensed chaos growing on Earth. War, division, suffering. I was chosen to offer our energy, a living light that could restore balance." Ethan leaned closer. "You mean, heal the planet?" "Yes," she said. "But instead, your leaders saw me land and thought it was an invasion. They attacked. I didn't fight. They used machines to trap me in time and buried me inside that statue." Her body trembled slightly. "I was awake the whole time," she whispered. "I felt the footsteps, the laughter, the tears, all around me, and I couldn't answer." Ethan clenched his fists. "They turned you into a symbol," he said, "a fake one. They told the world you stood for liberty. But they never told the truth." Lyra nodded. "And now, something is coming." Ethan froze. "You keep saying that. What's coming?" She looked at him, eyes glowing brighter now. "My people," she said. "They believed I was killed. And now they're coming to find out what happened. If they believe humans destroyed me, they will bring war." Ethan stood up, pacing. "No," he said. "There has to be a way to stop that. We just have to prove you're alive. Prove we're not all monsters." Lyra's voice turned quiet again. "Only if they hear it from me. And for that, I need my voice fully back." Ethan looked at her. "What do you need?" She closed her eyes. "There's a chamber beneath Liberty Island. It's where they placed the last part of the energy core I carried. I needed to restore myself fully. Ethan swallowed hard. Then we go back, he said. Lyra opened her eyes in surprise. You'd risk that? After what they did to me? He smiled sadly. Yeah, he said, because you still believe in U.S. And that means I have to too. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the station metal footsteps. Ethan quickly turned off the lantern. They both crouched in silence. A shadow moved past the window, then another. They were being hunted, and time was running out. The night outside the old train station grew colder. Lyra sat curled beside the wall, glowing faintly like soft moonlight. Ethan stood by the window, watching the shadows move past again and again. Whoever was searching for them. They were trained. They didn't make noise, and they were fast. He pulled the curtain closed and whispered, "We can't stay here." Lyra nodded silently, but her eyes were far away, staring into something only she could see. "You said your people are coming," Ethan said, kneeling beside her. "Why now? Why didn't they come sooner?" Lyra's voice was low, almost a whisper. "My people sent me with a living message," she said. "I was their bridge to Earth. They told me if I didn't return and no word came, they would assume I was destroyed. They gave it time. Centuries." Ethan's heart sank. 300 years, he said slowly. Lyra looked at him. "And now the time has passed," she said. "They are coming to take back what was lost or to destroy what hurt me." Ethan swallowed. "They think humans killed you." She nodded. "Yes." Outside, thunder rumbled again, and a drone zipped past the building. Ethan pulled her deeper into the shadows. "But what exactly were you carrying?" he asked. "You keep saying energy. What kind of energy?" Lyra hesitated. Then she reached forward and gently touched Ethan's chest. For a moment, he felt something. A warm pulse like light, like memory, like life itself. It wasn't painful, but it made his body tingle. She pulled back. "My people call it the heart light," she said. "It's not just power. It's connection. It heals minds, clears anger, mends what's broken inside. But if misused, it can amplify fear, hate, destruction." Ethan understood. "That's why they feared you," he whispered. She nodded. They sensed it, but didn't understand it. Suddenly, Lyra gasped and clutched her side. Her glow dimmed for a second. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked, panicking. "The heart light," she said. "It's unstable without the core." "I'm weakening," Ethan stood. "Then we go back to Liberty Island," he said. "You said the core is there, in some hidden chamber?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes. Beneath the statue's base. But it's sealed, guarded. And your people will not let us near it." Ethan thought for a moment. "Not unless we go underground," he said. "There's an old service tunnel from the 1920s. It leads to the island. I remember reading about it." Lyra looked up at him, surprised. "You would risk that?" He smiled. "I already helped you escape a statue and run from black-suited agents. Why stop now?" Just then, a sound echoed behind them, metal clanging. Someone had opened the back door of the station. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "We move now," he whispered. They slipped out the side, into the pouring rain, down the train tracks. Between broken rails and rusted signs, they ran until they reached a rusted iron gate. Behind it was the tunnel Ethan remembered from old maps his grandfather once showed him. He kicked the lock open, and they crawled inside. Dark, damp, cold, but safe for now. As they walked through the tunnel, Lyra spoke again. "There's something I haven't told you." Ethan glanced at her. "I figured," he said. Half smiling, she looked serious. "If I don't merge with the core in time, the energy inside me will break apart. It won't just kill me, it will spread." Ethan stopped walking. "Spread how?" "Like a wave," she said. "An uncontrolled storm of emotion and light. It could tear minds apart. Drive people mad." Ethan's chest tightened. "So we're not just running anymore," he said. We're trying to save the whole planet, she nodded. I'm sorry. I didn't want you involved. He looked at her and shook his head. Lyra, I'm not just involved now. I'm all in. Suddenly the tunnel lights above flickered. A deep hum vibrated through the floor. They weren't alone down there. Ethan turned and saw red beams scanning through the dark. They've followed us, he whispered. Lyra's glow brightened just enough to light a path. Faster, she said. We're close. They ran, footsteps echoing behind them, until they reached a steel hatch. Ethan entered a code on an old panel, one he had hacked earlier from city archives. The hatch opened, and they slipped through just as a red drone shot past. Inside the chamber was silence. And then something strange, a single orb floating mid-air, pulsing with a soft golden glow. Lyra gasped and fell to her knees. The core, she whispered. It's still alive. Ethan helped her forward. The orb reacted to her presence. It lit up like a small sun, and thin threads of light reached out to touch her. Her body rose off the floor slowly, hair lifting in the air, arms glowing bright. Ethan shielded his eyes as the energy surged through the room. She wasn't in pain anymore. She was transforming. Her voice echoed through the room, not just in Ethan's ears, but deep in his mind. I remember now who I was, what I must do. And then the core went dark, and Lyra fell silently to the ground. Lyra lay still on the cold metal floor. The golden glow that had surrounded her just moments ago was gone. Ethan knelt beside her, heart pounding in fear. Lyra, he whispered, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open. Slowly, she looked. Weak, but she was alive. I touched the core, she said softly. It gave me everything back. But I am still not complete. Ethan helped her sit up. You were floating, he said. Like a sun was inside you. She nodded slowly. It merged with me. But only a part of it. The rest is still scattered. Suddenly, the ground trembled from the tunnel behind them. Heavy boots echoed louder and closer. They're here, Ethan said, rising to his feet. We have to go now, Lyra struggled to stand, her legs shaking. He wrapped his arms around her and helped her up. Can you run? He asked. She looked into his eyes. I don't think so. Then I'll carry you, he said without hesitation, and he did, lifting her as gently as he could. Her glowing body felt lighter than a human, but still real, still alive, still hunted. They rushed through the old chamber door just as the drone army entered from the other side. Bright red beams scanned the room behind them, but Ethan had already jumped into a side shaft. The metal staircase shook as he ran downward, carrying her through the emergency maintenance tunnel. Lyra's head rested against his chest. You could leave me, she whispered. You would be safe, Ethan laughed bitterly. And let them kill you again? Not a chance. He didn't know where the tunnel would lead. He didn't have a plan. All he knew was if the people in charge found her again, they wouldn't put her back in stone. They would erase her completely. The tunnel opened into a utility room under an old museum on the far side of the island. Ethan kicked the rusted door open and stepped into darkness. Only a few emergency lights flickered above. He found a closet and gently placed Lyra inside. We'll hide here for a moment, he said, catching his breath. She nodded weakly. I feel different, she whispered. The core changed me. But not all of me is ready. Ethan sat beside her, breathing hard. His heart still raced, not just from running, but from fear. Fear of what would happen to her. Fear of what Earth might become. But even more than that, he was afraid of losing her. He didn't know why he felt so close to her so quickly. Maybe it was her voice in his mind, or the way she never blamed humans for what had happened. Maybe it was because in her eyes he saw hope. Lyra, he said, what happens if your people arrive and don't believe you're alive? She looked at him slowly. They will destroy this world, she said. They will think Earth betrayed peace, and I will have failed my mission. Ethan swallowed hard. But you're alive now. You can speak, she nodded. But my voice isn't enough. They need to see the truth. They need to feel it. Outside, the sound of boots echoed again. Guards entered the museum. Their radio voices cold and direct. "We have signs of movement," one said. "Target is still close." Ethan stood quickly. He looked around the small closet. There was a vent above. It was tight, but maybe just big enough. "I'm going to get you out of here," he said. Lyra looked at him with sad eyes. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "Why are you doing so much for me?" He paused, then said quietly, "Because when the world forgot you, you still believed in it. And I don't want the last good thing in it to be erased." He helped her into the vent, crawling behind her. It was dusty, narrow, but it led away from the guards. They moved slowly, quietly, the noise of footsteps growing distant. When they reached the end, Ethan kicked open the old grate and helped Lyra down into an alley behind the museum. From there, the city stretched out ahead, dark, rainy but full of life. "We need to reach a broadcast center," Ethan said. "If you can speak to your people, show them who you are, maybe they'll listen." Lyra nodded slowly. "My voice is stronger now," she said. "I can reach them if I have enough power." Ethan hailed a small hover taxi and helped her inside. He gave the driver a location: an abandoned satellite tower in the Bronx, a place no one would expect them to go. As the taxi lifted into the air, Lyra looked out at the city below. So many lights, so many people. She pressed her hand to the window. "I always wanted to help them," she said, "but they turned me into a warning instead." Ethan looked at her with gentle eyes. "They turned you into a statue," he said, "but now they're going to see the real you." But just as they reached the tower, the taxi was hit hard. A blast shook the cabin, and flames burst from the back. "Hold on," Ethan shouted, grabbing her tightly. They spiraled out of control, heading straight for the ground, and all Lyra could whisper was, "Don't let me disappear again." The burning hover taxi crashed into the rooftop of the old satellite tower. Flames lit up the night sky as metal scraped and sparked. Ethan pulled Lyra out just before the back of the cabin exploded. Smoke choked the air, and alarms blared through the broken rooftop systems. Lyra stumbled, her legs barely holding her. Her body was glowing again, but now it flickered, like a dying light. I can't," she whispered, falling to her knees. Ethan dropped beside her and held her tight. "You can," he said. "You've come this far." Below them, black aircraft circled the tower. Agents in dark armor rappelled from the sky. They weren't coming to ask questions. They were coming to erase her. Ethan looked around the rooftop and spotted the emergency satellite terminal. It was old, rusted, and powered down, but it still had a core relay. He turned to Lyra. "Can you connect to that?" he asked. "If we send a message now, before they reach us, they'll hear you." Lyra looked up slowly. Her eyes were weak, but her voice came through his mind clearly. "I will try." He helped her stand and guided her to the terminal. Her glowing hands hovered above the old console. The lights sparked, flickered, and then turned on. The satellite dish above them moved slowly, adjusting its angle to face the sky. "They're coming," Ethan whispered, watching the armed figures climb higher. "We only have a few minutes." Lyra closed her eyes and placed her hand on the console. Golden light flowed from her skin into the wires. The entire rooftop began to hum with energy. And then her voice echoed, not just in the room, not just in Ethan's mind, but across the sky. A signal shot upward, reaching the stars. Her voice, soft, sad, full of truth, traveled through space. To her people, to anyone who would listen. "I am Lyra of the Kalari. I was sent to your world in peace. I was silenced. Not by death, but by fear. For centuries, I watched your world grow. I felt the love, the laughter, the hate, and the war. But still, I believe there is good in humanity." Ethan stood frozen as her words wrapped around the night. It was not just sound, it was feeling, and even the agents climbing the tower paused, listening, unsure of what they were hearing. Lyra continued, "I was buried under stone, turned into a symbol, but not of truth. And now, I choose to speak, not for revenge, but for peace. Tears rolled down Ethan's face. He had never heard anything so beautiful, so raw. She wasn't asking for mercy. She was offering understanding. But just as her voice reached its final words, a red laser beam cut through the rooftop and struck the console. The satellite sparked violently, and Lyra screamed. Her body was thrown backward, landing hard on the ground. Nitrogen monoxide. Ethan shouted. Rushing to her, smoke filled the rooftop, and soldiers climbed over the ledge. Guns raised, red lights blinking. Lyra lay still, eyes closed, her glow fading again. Hands up. One soldier barked, but Ethan didn't move. He held her in his arms. And then he stood carrying her again. Just like before, he walked straight toward the soldiers. Unarmed, unafraid. She was trying to save us, he said, voice shaking. With emotion, she sent a message to stop a war, and you shot her again. The soldiers hesitated. They had expected a monster, but all they saw was a girl in pain and a human who wouldn't leave her. Then a sound came from the sky, a deep hum. The clouds above parted, and golden light poured down. A massive ship, nothing like Earth had ever built, hovered silently above the tower. The soldiers backed away, terrified. The ship was silent, but something about it felt ancient and powerful. A beam of soft light reached down from it, covering Lyra and Ethan both. Her eyes fluttered open again. I think they heard me, she whispered. And then her body rose slowly, floating in the beam. Ethan tried to hold on, but she smiled gently and said, "Don't be afraid." As the soldiers watched, stunned and silent, the alien girl a statue, once forgotten, rose into the sky, not as a prisoner, not as a threat, but as a voice, a bridge. And Ethan could only whisper, "Please come back." But before she vanished into the golden light, she reached out one last time, her voice echoing in his mind, "I will return." Not as stone, but as truth. Then the light vanished, and she was gone. For days the world was quiet. No news reports, no government statements. Just confusion, rumors, and silence. People spoke of a golden ship in the sky. Some said it was a weapon, others said it was a miracle. But no one knew the full truth except Ethan. He sat alone in his apartment, watching the city from his window. Everything looked the same, but he felt different. He had seen something greater than war, politics, or fear. He had seen Lyra, the girl from the stars, the prisoner of stone. She had trusted him, and he had carried her through fire, and now she was gone, or so he thought, one evening. As the sun began to fall behind the skyline, a soft light filled his living room. It wasn't a lamp, it came from the air itself. Ethan stood quickly, heart racing, and there she was, Lyra, standing in front of him, no longer weak, no longer afraid. She looked stronger, brighter, her eyes glowed with warmth, her skin shimmered like moonlight over water. You're back," Ethan said, his voice trembling. She smiled gently. "I told you I would return." He stepped closer, not believing his eyes. "You're okay? What happened?" Lyra nodded. "My people listened," she said. "They heard my voice, and yours. They saw the memories you shared," she continued. "They saw that not all humans are cruel. Not all are afraid." Ethan exhaled deeply. "So, there's not going to be a war?" She shook her head. "No," she said softly. "They chose peace." Ethan couldn't help but smile. "You did it," he whispered. Lyra looked down. "No," she said. "We did it." They sat together, the room glowing with soft light around her. Ethan noticed something on her arm symbols he hadn't seen before. "What's that?" he asked. "A choice," she said. "These marks. They mean I am free now, no longer bound by the mission. No longer a prisoner, free to go home." Ethan asked carefully. She looked at him for a long time. "Yes," she said. "Free to return to the stars. To my people. My world. My sky." Ethan felt a quiet pain in his chest. He didn't stop her. He didn't beg. But he said, "Then you should go. Lyra looked at him, her eyes shimmering. I didn't say I wanted to, Ethan blinked. What? She moved. Closer. Your world is broken, she said, but it's trying, and maybe. That's what makes it beautiful. You showed me kindness, she said. You didn't run from me, even when I was dangerous. You carried me when I was weak. Ethan's throat tightened. I didn't want you to be alone, Lyra. Reached out and touched his hand. You gave me something I never had, even among my own kind. A reason to stay. He looked at her, unable to speak. So you're not going back? I'm staying, she said softly. Not as a visitor. Not as a symbol, but as someone who belongs. Ethan laughed gently, a tear slipping down his cheek. People are going to freak out when they see you, Lyra smiled. Then, don't show them just yet, she said. I want to live first, to walk freely, eat your strange food, ride your crowded buses. Learn your world, not from stone, but from life. He nodded. You can stay here, he said. It's small, but it's safe. She looked around and nodded with a smile. I like small, she said. It feels real, and just like that. She stayed, not as a secret, not as a goddess, but as Lyra the girl who was once trapped in stone, now walking among humans, in time. She learned their languages, laughed at their jokes, cried at their stories. She visited schools, helped rebuild broken places. She healed not with powers, but with presence. People didn't know her past, but they felt something when she entered a room. Like sunlight after a storm, like truth after a long silence. And Ethan? He never let go of her hand again. They sat together, often watching the Statue of Liberty from a distance. Still standing tall, still hiding her old secret. Ethan smiled one day and said, Do you miss being up there? Lyra leaned against his shoulder and whispered, No, because down here, I finally get to feel free.